Right, the funeral of retired Lieutenant General Gilbert Ramano is being held this morning at Thaba Tshwane City Hall in Pretoria, where he's been given a full military funeral with honours. Ramano, who served as the chief of the SANDF for the South African Army and was a former MK commander, passed away on the 8th of June at the age of 85. He is widely respected as a liberation veteran and distinguished military leader. Let's take you live to the proceedings now, where I do understand that we do have the chief of the SANDF at this point, who has taken to the podium, Mapwanya, who is on the stage.
Task to take a group of young South Africans who were taken underground to Lusaka and taken to the sides of Zipra bases Emagojin. This grouping was not allowed to be in the same company or presence of others so that they can be re-infiltrated back to South Africa. That was the first encounter with General Ramano. And at that stage, that is where one could say the element of discipline, which we saw as being rigid, had been displayed. And that is the first time that I saw that character, and I said, the way he is, he seems to be very mechanical in doing things. The team gave him the name Babakatete, primarily because at that time, the pistol that was in service by then, whilst there were other weapons, was Teterov, abbreviated as Tete. So the name Babakatete might have not been very popular to him, but he accepted it as we were moving on. That is the first encounter. And the second encounter, after we have been infiltrated, then again, we encountered each other in Matola. Years after, because of the disciplined way that he conducted his life, he was very unpopular amongst those who were living both at Terranest, including those who were at the Natal Missionary. And General Nyanda will also attest that even those who were in Liberdad and Barlopsh, because wherever you go, you would find him. Hence the likes of Awostelwat, Awopiwe, would say, this old man thinks he's a James Bond. Wherever we go, he's there. Allow me to reflect it in the way it was, such that one day, because General Ramano used to grow a beard, Orobi, by then. And Ustalwad, because, you know, we were young, very energetic, and when we were coming back from operations inside the country, whilst we were relaxing and moving around, whenever you take a corner, you would find General Ramano, and you don't know how. What does he want? He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. Now, what does he want? But the reality is, he was there to protect us because we were young and at times reckless. So counterintelligence It's another way of protecting those who can even harm themselves. And Ustalwad at one stage, angry as he was, just decided that now, today I'm going to confront General Ramano, and he went straight. Young South Africans, as we were, he wanted to intimidate General Ramano, and General Ramano is not the type of a person that could be intimidated. He went to him, took out the okapi, a young South African, hold General Ramano and say, "Wena, I will shave these beards by this." General Ramano just told him, "Pharaoh, you are playing." And Stalwart was intimidated himself, and he saw that he couldn't intimidate General Ramano. So those were the hard and light moments that when we were in Mozambique, it is the time when also there was Nkomati Accord. By that time, when Nkomati Accord was signed, there was a lot of movement both to Nampula and to West. Coming back from Swaziland, I then met Klasma Pepa, and then General Ramano was supposed to be taking a team and also leading people to Nampula, and some of us said it's better maybe to go back to Angola because Nampula is rather too far to find ourselves going back home to fight. But it was a decision that was taken by the leadership. And then we parted ways from that time. I went back to Angola again. First word, we met again at RC years later in Zambia. Same. We were on our way coming back, and then we were in Makeni. So again he came and said, "Rich, hapa unayale ozama as command." I had good moments with him. This time I had to leave him behind in Zambia because I was now heading for Zimbabwe. I thought maybe that is the last time that I was seeing him again in Zimbabwe. Whilst under the visit machinery, I met him once again in Zimbabwe, and we had a chat before we infiltrated back home. I said it is very difficult for me to relate to General Ramano only as Chief of the National Defense Force. Maybe I must also fast forward, because for me to pay homage or tribute to this humble giant who is an embodiment of great sons and heroes of our struggle, it will be amiss if I do not relate some of these issues that actually formed some of us to be officers that also subscribe to the values that he stood for. From time to time, I borrowed what was also the inscription in one of our writings that continuously remind us that discipline is a mother of victory. It is humbling indeed to hear such good and motivational stories from those who have served under General Ramano and those who served with him. Some of us are young, or rather, we were young, and it assures me that he was a man of character and a patriot indeed. He loved his work, he loved his people, and General Ramano was there when we buried Comrade Mabida in Mozambique, when O.R. Tambo once referred to the late Moses Mabida as a giant in a very poetic way. He said, I quote, "Those who have lived with giants knows that Moses Mangani Mabida belongs to that category as well." I now also echo that same sentiment and say those who have lived with General Ramano knows that he belongs to the category of giants as well. It is on that note that when General Ramano was appointed as Chief of the Army, he instructed me to move to Kimberley to take over the command of 3SI. I never had the opportunity to take up that responsibility. When I was in Kimberley on a reconnaissance visit, I got a call directly from him instructing me to come back to Pretoria. And he simply just said, "Rich, we are going to redeploy you." I was given 2 signals within a space of 1 month, the one to 3SI and the other one to go and serve in the South African Special Forces. I didn't argue because there was no time to argue with General Ramano. I went and served at Special Forces under the leadership of General Nyanda. General Ramano continued to serve as the Chief of the Army, and that was now where we were not parting ways but complementing each other, because Special Forces falls directly under command of the Chief of the National Defense Force. And therefore, General Ramano, as in the line of command, was now out of my sight, but not out of my mind, because in whatever I was doing, I used to refer to the areas of discipline that he had taught me. And that is what led for me to keep on reminding all those who served under me that for us to succeed, even if you want to ride a bicycle, you must have discipline. For those who managed to conquer the high mountains, they did so because of discipline. I therefore continued to serve, and from time to time go to the army headquarters to get counsel from General Ramano. And indeed, the counsel I could get, because by the time, every time I get there, he would bellow to me and say, "Hoshi, Rich, Muna, it is like when you are in Special Forces, you have forgotten that you are a member of the army." I said, "Yes, indeed, I haven't forgotten." But today, as we bid farewell to General Ramano, I would like to once again re-emphasize what Madiba once said in recognition of the fact that General Ramano lived his life in a manner befitting, to say he had lived his life to the fullest. For Madiba said, when a man has done what he considers to be his duty to his people and his country, he can rest in peace. I believe I've made that effort, and that is therefore why I will sleep for eternity. That in itself resonates in what General Ramano today might be saying to all of us. I'm convinced that at this point in time, General Ramano would also be encouraging us to have engagement and dialogue which has the potential to kindle our consciousness about our foundational values as the National Defence Force. Chief amongst these values will remain a discipline and acceptance of the centrality of unitary command. Commanders at all levels must exercise their command responsibility, and the best way to do so is to realize and know that the best way is to know the best way. And commanders themselves must understand that they are commanding because they are subordinates. Minister was also touched when Dan was bemoaning the fact that military veterans are not getting the necessary treatment. I thought maybe we have a policy that allows military veterans to be treated in our hospitals. And indeed, the fact that the other part of the department, which is the military veterans, might not be putting their share of money that is supposed to be transferred in time. They do so. And there is no reason why veterans cannot be treated. I'm a little bit taken aback because, again, when General Ramano was still alive, indeed, General Yam, he called me. He said the one side of the cemetery, the grass had been cut, but the other side, it's not cut. What's going on? And I immediately called the people that are supposed to do that work and say, it doesn't have to be people coming to tell you to do what is right. Hence I'm saying commanders at all levels must take command, and to do so is to know what is right. I was expecting Comrade Dan to cite a very popular quote that once and again reflect on the beautiful words by Nikolai Ostrovsky that defines General Ramano's life, because Dan from time to time would remind us of this quote which says, all my life, all my strength were given to the finest cause in all the world, the fight for the liberation of mankind. Close quote. I expected that from Dan because General Ramano lived his life to the fullest, and I know he has no regrets, primarily because it was stated he never betrayed the cause, he never faltered, he never stooped low to work for recognition. So, to the entire Ramano family, all his comrades, all his friends, I wouldn't like to use the word that the baobab tree has fallen, because he had never been in the flora family. Rather, he was in the fauna family. Ngachivenda ufi, adzimana ula malombe, mukosi a pararano. Allow us to share the pain with you, the entire family, both the military and the blood family of General Ramano. Because General Ramano currently is on his path to join all his great comrades from the Lutuli detachment and the rest of the other detachments. Is joining the other generals from the National Defense Force that had gone before him. And therefore we say his legacy will live forever. We'll always remember him. And indeed, like what Dan said, hamba kahle social mkhonto, hamba kahle General Ramano, the General of the South African National Defense Force, rest indeed in power. For peace you bestowed both to those who cannot defend themselves, those who relied on your counsel, and the offense of those who have fallen, as we have received the young ones that came from DRC yesterday. We therefore once again say, for all that they were doing, it was because they love peace more than war. I thank you.
Well, the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, General Ruzani Mapanya, are paying a tribute there. Those live visuals coming to you from Thaba Tshwane City Hall in Pretoria, where family and friends and military officials have gathered to honour the legacy of retired Lieutenant General Gilbert Ramano. The Chief of the SANDF speaking about Ramano's contribution towards them, the calibre of person that he was towards them, and his dedication, of course, to this particular sector. The Chief of the South African National Defence Force also just touching very briefly on the return of the first batch of SANDF soldiers that returned, the SAMIDRAC officials, SAMI DRC, in actual fact, let me correct that, SAMI DRC, they returned to South Africa yesterday, late last night. The South African troops that were part of SAMI DRC returning to the country yesterday, arriving at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. And once again, the Chief of the SANDF, General Ruzani Mapanya, also paying tribute to them and commending them for their dedication to service as well as peace.